I always believed a man becomes dangerous only after he runs out of ways to stay calm. That night in a Manhattan restaurant, when my son-in-law yanked my daughter's hair so hard her breath hitched and his father applauded, the last ounce of my calm evaporated. I stood up from my chair, and the whole room went silent. They thought I was frozen. They thought I was weak. But what I did next, and what I set in motion after that night, will follow them until the day they're old enough to fear mirrors. Before we continue, we ask you to hit the hype button, subscribe, and like the video to help the channel grow. Tell us which city you are from in the comments. We would like to get to know our audience better. The restaurant was the kind of place where waiters memorized your preferences and the lighting made everyone look 20 years younger. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths so crisp they could cut paper. I'd chosen it carefully, neutral ground, public enough to keep things civil, or so I thought. The reservation had taken 3 weeks to secure. Per se wannabe, someone told me once, but with better acoustics and worse wine. I didn't care about the prestige. I cared about the open floor plan, the well-spaced tables, the kind of environment where people behaved because they knew others were watching. Callie sat across from me, her shoulders drawn in like she was trying to disappear into her chair. My daughter, 27 years old, used to light up entire rooms with her laugh. She'd had this energy about her, infectious, warm, the kind that made strangers smile when she passed. Now that energy was gone, compressed into something small and careful. Tonight, she barely managed a smile when I asked about her design work. "It's fine, Dad," she'd said, stirring her water with a cocktail straw. "We landed a new client last week. Tech startup, wants a complete rebrand." "That's great, sweetheart. You always did have an eye for—" Trenton Marlowe sat beside her, one arm draped possessively across the back of her chair. 32, corporate middle management, the kind of guy who wore his watch loose so people could see the brand. Everything about him screamed calculated. The haircut that cost $300, the cologne that probably cost more, the way he positioned himself in every space like he was being photographed. His father, Arthur, occupied the seat opposite him. 61 years of practiced superiority compressed into an expensive suit. Steel gray hair, perfectly maintained tan despite it being February, hands that had never done manual labor. He'd made his fortune in commercial real estate, buying distressed properties and flipping them before the market crashed. Smart man. Ruthless man. The kind who measured other people's worth in dollar amounts. "So, Harold," Arthur began, swirling his wine like he was performing for an invisible audience. "Still playing gym teacher to amateurs?" I owned Benton Athletics for 15 years. We'd trained 3 Olympic hopefuls and dozens of competitive fighters. Last year, we grossed just under $2 million. We had corporate clients, professional athletes, weekend warriors trying to recapture their youth. But Arthur had a talent for making success sound like failure. "Business is solid," I said evenly, cutting into my steak. "How's commercial real estate treating you?" "Can't complain. Just closed on a property in Tribeca. $12 million. Pocket change, really, but it'll flip nicely." He paused, studying me. "You ever think about expanding, getting out of that neighborhood, moving somewhere more upscale?" "I like my neighborhood. People there are real." "Real," Arthur chuckled. "That's one way to put it." Before I could respond, Callie spoke up. Her voice was quiet, almost apologetic. "Dad's club just got featured in that fitness magazine, the one that profiles boutique gyms. They called it one of the best training facilities in New York." "That's wonderful, honey," I said, meaning it. Trenton's hand shot out. He grabbed a fistful of her hair at the nape of her neck and yanked her head down toward the table. The motion was quick, practiced, like he'd done it before, like he knew exactly how much force to use to cause pain without causing visible damage. Callie's breath hitched, not quite a gasp, more like the sound of someone who'd learned not to make noise when it hurt. Her hands gripped the edge of the table, Her knuckles went white. A single tear tracked down her cheek, catching the candlelight, leaving a glistening trail. Arthur clapped. 3 loud, deliberate claps that rang out across our corner of the restaurant. "That's right," he said, grinning like he'd just witnessed something praiseworthy. "She must know her place. Women these days forget. They need reminding." Trenton released her hair and picked up his wine glass, taking a long sip like nothing had happened. "Talking out of turn," he muttered. "Interrupting men. It's disrespectful." A couple at the adjacent table looked over. The woman's face registered shock, maybe sympathy. The man laughed nervously, then looked away, suddenly fascinated by his pasta. Everything inside me went very still. It wasn't anger. Not yet. Anger is hot and loud and impulsive. This was something colder, something that settled in my chest like ice forming on a lake, silent, patient, absolute. I stood up slowly. The scrape of my chair against the marble floor seemed impossibly loud. Conversations at nearby tables faltered, then faded away. The restaurant's ambient noise, clinking silverware, muted jazz from hidden speakers, whispered conversations, all of it drained away until the only sound was my own breathing. Trenton's hand released Callie's hair. His fingers trembled slightly as he reached for his water glass. He tried to take a drink but couldn't quite manage it. The glass shook in his grip. I didn't say anything at first. I just looked at him. He couldn't hold my gaze. His eyes darted to his father, to the floor, to the wall, anywhere but my face. I watched his throat work as he swallowed, watched the color drain from his cheeks, watched him try to arrange his features into something resembling confidence and fail completely. When I finally spoke, my voice came out quiet. Calm. The kind of calm that makes people nervous because they know it's not really calm at all. It's control holding back something much worse. "You just made a mistake you don't understand." Trenton tried to laugh it off. The sound came out strangled, more like a cough. "What, can't handle a little discipline? Maybe if you'd taught her some respect when she was younger, I wouldn't have to—" "We're leaving," Arthur interrupted, standing abruptly. His chair scraped backward, nearly tipping. "Come on, Trenton. Let the man have his tantrum in private." I didn't move. I stayed standing, watching them gather their things with shaking hands, watching Arthur sign the check with aggressive flourishes that tore the paper, watching Trenton avoid my eyes as he practically ran for the exit. The waiter appeared, concerned. "Sir, is everything—" "Everything's fine," I said, quietly. "Put their meals on my tab." Callie remained in her seat, staring at her untouched dessert, some elaborate chocolate thing with gold leaf. Her hand touched the back of her head gently, tenderly, checking for damage that wouldn't show. "Sweetheart," I said softly, "let's go home." She nodded without speaking. The drive to Callie's apartment was silent for the first 10 minutes. She stared out the window, her reflection ghostly in the glass, occasionally reaching up to touch her hair where he'd grabbed it. The city slid past, lights, people, life continuing like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. I kept both hands on the wheel and waited. Pushing her to talk before she was ready never worked. Callie had always been like that, even as a kid. She needed time to process, to find the right words, to feel safe enough to speak them. Finally, as we crossed into her neighborhood, tree-lined streets, brownstones, the kind of area young professionals flock to, she spoke. "It's not always like that." I didn't respond, just drove. "I mean, he doesn't usually do it in public. That was new. Usually it's just at home, when we're alone." My hands tightened on the wheel. "How often is it like that?" I asked. "Dad—" "How often, Callie?" Her voice cracked, often enough that I stopped counting. I pulled over. We were 3 blocks from her building, parked under a streetlight that flickered like a fading heartbeat. I turned off the engine and waited, giving her space, giving her time. "He's never done it in public before," she continued. I think he felt safe because his father was there. Like having Arthur approve made it okay. Usually it's just comments, ways to make me feel small. He'll criticize my work, tell me my designs are amateurish. He'll make fun of my friends, say they're beneath us. He monitors my phone sometimes, asks why I'm texting people, who they are, what we're talking about. She was talking faster now, words spilling out like she'd been holding them back for months. And lately, he's gotten bolder. His father keeps telling him that women need to be controlled, that being soft is weakness, that a real man doesn't let his wife disrespect him. I heard them talking about it once. Arthur was saying how he trained Trenton's mother, how she used to be mouthy, but he broke her of it. "Does he hurt you?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Not like you're thinking. He doesn't. It's not that. He just grabs. Hair, wrists, sometimes my arm hard enough to leave marks. But only where people can't see them. Only where I can hide it with sleeves or scarves. He's careful about that. Strategic." I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not anger. Not yet. This was colder than anger. This was calculation. "And with other people?" I asked. "Men? Does he act this way around other men?" Callie actually laughed, a bitter, hollow sound that hurt to hear. "Are you kidding? At his office, he's everyone's best friend. All jokes and backslaps and beer after work. He takes clients golfing, tells stories, plays the charming executive. Nobody there would believe what he's like at home. He saves it all for me." She turned to look at me finally, her eyes red but dry. "And his mother sometimes, when his dad isn't around. I've seen him snap at her, order her around. Anyone who won't fight back. Anyone who's been trained not to." That was all I needed to know. Trenton Marlowe was a coward who performed strength. He bullied women because they were taught to absorb it quietly. He played tough guy because real toughness terrified him. And cowards, I knew from 30 years in combat sports, broke easily once you exposed them. The best fighters I'd ever trained weren't the ones who came in aggressive, all bravado and ego. Those guys burned out fast or got humbled hard. The best fighters were the ones who understood something fundamental. Real strength didn't need to announce itself. Real strength was quiet until the moment it wasn't. "I'm going to fix this," I said. "Dad, please don't do anything crazy. I can handle—" "I'm not going to hurt him," I looked at her directly. "But I am going to make sure he never touches you again. And I'm going to do it in a way that he'll never recover from." She searched my face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Some part of her understood what I wasn't saying. Some part of her wanted this, needed this, had been waiting for someone to finally stand up and make it stop. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "Something that won't put me in jail but will put him in hell. Trust me? Always." I drove her the rest of the way home, waited until she was safely inside her building, then headed back to my club. The streets were emptier now, late enough that only restaurants and bars remained open, their warm light spilling onto sidewalks. My phone buzzed. Text from Trenton. "Stay out of our marriage. This doesn't concern you." I didn't respond. Let him wonder. Let him worry. Benton Athletics was empty at midnight. I liked it that way. Just me, the equipment, and the silence. The building had been a warehouse once, back in the 80s, until I bought it cheap and converted it. High ceilings, exposed brick, industrial lighting. It smelled like rubber and chalk and sweat. Honest smells. I turned on only the ring lights, leaving the rest of the space in shadow. The boxing ring sat in the center of the main floor, elevated 3 feet, surrounded by rows of heavy bags and training equipment. I designed this space to feel both welcoming and intimidating, a place where people discovered what they were capable of. Tonight, I was discovering what I was capable of. I sat on the ring apron, legs dangling, and let myself think clearly for the first time since the restaurant. My phone kept buzzing, messages I ignored. Probably Trenton, probably Arthur, probably both of them trying to control the narrative, explain it away, make me the problem. I thought about Callie's face when Trenton grabbed her, the way she'd flinched but not pulled away, because she'd learned that pulling away made it worse, the way that single tear had fallen, because crying too much would be dramatic, attention-seeking, another thing to punish. I thought about Arthur's applause, enthusiastic, genuine, proud, and I thought about all the other women out there who were sitting at tables right now, absorbing similar treatment, believing they had no options, no power, no way out. Trenton was weak. Trenton was a performer. Trenton folded the moment real confrontation appeared. Arthur enabled him, encouraged him, applauded him, created him, really, molded him into this thing that hurt people to feel whole. They both thought they were untouchable because nobody had ever truly challenged them. Not in a way that mattered, not in a way that left marks they couldn't hide. But I understood something they didn't, something I'd learned from decades of training fighters and watching matches and studying the psychology of combat. The most devastating victories weren't physical, they were psychological. They were public. A fighter could lose a match and come back stronger. Broken ribs healed, black eyes faded. But a fighter exposed as a coward in front of a crowd? That fighter never recovered. That wound stayed open forever. I pulled out my phone and dialed Officer Laramie. He'd been training at my club for 8 years. Solid cop, good instincts, owed me for keeping his teenage son out of trouble when the kid got caught with friends who were stealing cars. Nothing major, just stupid teenage stuff. But it could have derailed his whole future. I'd talked to the right people, called in favors, made it go away quietly. Laramie answered on the third ring, voice groggy. "Harold, it's midnight. Remember how you always said you owed me?" A pause. I could almost hear him sitting up in bed, alert now. "Yeah. I'm collecting. I need you at the club tomorrow, 10 a.m., and I need you to trust me on something that might seem strange." "How strange are we talking?" "The kind where you'll understand why afterward. The kind that doesn't break any laws, but bends a lot of social norms." Another pause. Longer this time. "You're not going to do something I'll have to arrest you for, are you?" "I'm not going to break a single law. No assault, no threats, no property damage. Just public education." "All right. What time?" 10 a.m. And Laramie, bring your uniform, the official one. I need the presents." I hung up before he could ask more questions. Next, I walked the perimeter of the gym, making mental notes, lighting angles, sound acoustics, sight lines. I'd hosted plenty of demonstrations before, self-defense workshops, youth boxing exhibitions, charity events. This would look exactly like those. Clean, professional, community-focused. But underneath, it would be something else entirely. I stood in the center of the ring and looked out at the empty space, imagining it filled with people, witnesses, cameras, social proof. In the age of smartphones and social media, public humiliation didn't just happen in the moment. It lived forever, replayed, shared, immortalized. "You don't touch my daughter," I whispered to the darkness. The words echoed off the high ceiling, fading into nothing. I left the lights on as I walked out. I wanted the ring visible from the street, a promise of what was coming. Trenton's office building was one of those glass towers in Midtown, where everyone looked busy, but nobody seemed to actually work. I'd looked up his company, mid-level consulting firm, the kind that charged ridiculous fees to tell executives things they already knew. Trenton was a project manager, which meant he organized meetings and created PowerPoint presentations and probably hadn't had an original thought in years. I found him on the 14th floor, visible through the transparent walls of a conference room, gesturing aggressively during what appeared to be a video call. He was performing again, big movements, forceful pointing, the whole alpha male routine, for the cameras, for whoever was watching. I waited in the lobby outside until he finished. When he emerged, coffee in hand, he nearly dropped it when he saw me. "Harold, what are you doing here?" I stood up from the leather chair I'd been sitting in. Just stood, Didn't move toward him, didn't speak immediately. Just let him see me there, in his territory, invading his professional space. His face went through several expressions in rapid succession: confusion, annoyance. Then something else, something that looked like fear trying to disguise itself as anger. "Look, about last night," he started, his voice taking on that corporate smoothness. "If you're here to make a scene, this really isn't the place. We can talk like adults somewhere private." "I came to see where you work," I said calmly. "Wanted to understand the environment that produces a man like you." "A man like me?" His voice pitched higher. "What's that supposed to mean?" I took one step closer. Just one. Trenton stepped back. His shoulders hit the wall behind him. Coffee sloshed in his cup, spilling onto his hand. He didn't seem to notice. "It means," I continued, keeping my voice level and quiet so only he could hear, "that I've spent 30 years teaching people how to recognize strength, real strength, the kind that doesn't need to prove itself by hurting people who can't fight back." I didn't hurt her. She was interrupting. "She needed to learn. You grabbed my daughter by the hair in a public restaurant. That's between me and my wife." "No." I took another step. "That became my business the moment you made her cry." Trenton's coffee cup trembled. Some of the liquid sloshed over the rim onto his expensive shoes. He looked down at the stain, then back up at me, and I saw it clearly. The exact moment his tough guy mask cracked. "Are you threatening me?" He tried to sound outraged, but his voice broke on the last word. "No, I'm just standing here, Trenton. Why does that scare you?" He couldn't answer. His mouth opened and closed like a fish drowning in air. Behind us, a woman walked by, gave us a curious glance, kept moving. The corporate hive buzzed around us, oblivious. I leaned in close enough that only he could hear me. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to receive an invitation to an event at my club, a community safety night. You're going to attend." "Like heck I am." "Yes, you are. Because if you don't, I'll make sure every person in this building knows exactly what kind of man you are. I'll stand in this lobby and tell every single employee, every client, every visitor how you mistreat women when nobody's watching. I'll spell out exactly what you did to Callie. I'll make sure everyone knows." His face went red, then white. "You can't do that. That's slander. I'll sue you for defamation. Truth is a defense against slander." I straightened up, adjusting my jacket. "See you at the event, Trenton. Friday night, 7 p.m. Bring your father. He'll enjoy it. After all, he applauded last time." I walked away before he could respond, leaving him pressed against the wall, breathing hard, coffee dripping onto his Italian leather shoes. In the elevator, I allowed myself a small smile. Phase 1 complete. Now he was thinking about me, worrying about me, wondering what I'd do next. The anticipation would eat at him worse than anything I could say. Perfect. The next morning, I gathered my senior staff in my office, 3 trainers who'd been with me for years, plus Jordan Hale, my top boxing student, and the only amateur fighter I'd trained who'd gone undefeated his first 20 matches. Jordan was 26, 6'2", lean muscle built from years of dedicated training. He had that quality rare in young fighters, discipline married to natural talent. No ego about it either. He fought because he loved it, not because he needed to prove anything. "We're hosting a community safety night next Friday," I announced. "Free entry, open to the public, self-defense demonstrations, anti-bullying workshop, the works." My head trainer, Holden, raised an eyebrow. He'd been with me since the beginning, knew how I operated, could read between lines. "That's short notice. What's the occasion?" "Community outreach, good press. You know how it is." "Harold, we haven't done one of these in 2 years. Why now?" "Because it's needed." I met his eyes. "Because people need to see certain things, learn certain lessons." Jordan leaned forward. "You want me to run the demos?" "Some of them. Officer Laramie will give a talk about recognizing abusive behavior. I want the focus on bullies who target women, hair-pulling escapes, wrist release techniques, that kind of thing. Specific, Jordan observed, studying me. I met his eyes. Jordan was smart as hell. He knew something was up. Very specific, I agreed. Can you handle it? Can make it look good. He paused. Am I the only one performing? You'll be the main event, but there might be audience participation. The room went quiet. My staff exchanged glances. Finally, Holden spoke up. Harold, if this is about... It's about making a point. I cut him off gently. A very public, very memorable point. Nobody gets hurt. Nobody gets arrested. But someone learns a lesson they'll never forget. Jordan grinned slowly. I'm in. The others nodded, still uncertain but trusting me. Over the next few days, I worked 18-hour shifts getting everything ready. I designed flyers emphasizing women's safety, bold text, simple graphics, contact information for support services for those facing harm at home. I distributed them to local businesses, posted them in community centers, left stacks at coffee shops and bookstores. The response was immediate. People called asking questions, expressing interest, sharing stories. I called in favors from regular members, ensuring a packed house. I adjusted the ring lights to create a spotlight effect, harsh, exposing, the kind that showed everything. I tested the sound system until every word spoken in the ring could be heard, crystal clear in the back row. Tuesday evening, I visited a theatrical supply store and bought 3 wireless microphones with hidden receivers, professional grade, the kind actors used. I tested them obsessively until I could pick up a whisper from 30 feet away. Wednesday morning, I received a call from a local news station. They'd seen the flyers, wanted to cover the event. I agreed immediately. More witnesses, more reach, more permanence. Callie called Wednesday evening. Dad, I got an invitation to something at your club. Did you? Yes, you don't have to come. Trenton got one too. So did Arthur. They're arguing about whether to go. Arthur will make him go, I said confidently. Men like Arthur can't resist an opportunity to prove something, especially after being challenged. Dad, what are you planning? Just a community event, sweetheart. Nothing illegal, nothing aggressive, just educational. She was quiet for a long moment. Will it stop him? Yes. How can you be sure? Because after Friday night, Trenton won't be able to look himself in the mirror without remembering what everyone saw. He won't be able to walk into his office without wondering if people know. He won't be able to touch you without feeling the weight of 200 witnesses. 200? At least. Maybe more. Another pause. I love you, Dad. I love you too, sweetheart. This ends Friday. Friday arrived cold and clear. February in New York, the kind of cold that cut through jackets and made people walk faster. By 6 p.m., when doors opened, we already had a line stretching down the block. I'd underestimated the appeal. Apparently, people were hungry for this kind of content. The gym filled rapidly. I'd arranged folding chairs in rows facing the ring, with standing room along the walls. By 6:30, we'd hit capacity. Fire marshal would have shut us down if he'd been here. By 7, we had maybe 200 people crammed in, with another 50 outside trying to get in. Women from self-defense classes I'd taught over the years. Regular gym members and their families. Curious neighbors who'd seen the flyers. A reporter from the local news station with a camera operator. College students looking for something different to do on a Friday night. And there, near the back, trying to look casual and failing completely, stood Trenton and Arthur Marlowe. Arthur wore his usual armor of expensive fabric and cold superiority, navy suit, probably cost $3,000, silk tie, gold cufflinks that caught the light. He surveyed the crowd like he was judging it, finding it wanting. Trenton looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. His eyes kept darting to the exits, mapping escape routes. He was sweating despite the cold, kept wiping his palms on his pants. Officer Laramie arrived in full uniform, as I'd asked. He positioned himself near the ring, Official presence radiating authority. Badge visible. Hand near his belt. The crowd noticed, adjusted their behavior slightly. Nobody wanted to act up with NYPD present. At 7:30, I stepped into the ring with a microphone. The crowd settled into attentive silence. Thank you all for coming. Tonight is about one thing, showing what real strength looks like, and more importantly, what it doesn't. A few people clapped. I raised my hand to stop them. We're going to demonstrate techniques for escaping common attacks, but we're also going to talk about why these attacks happen. Why some people choose to hurt others who can't fight back. Why cowardice disguises itself as control. I let that hang in the air. We're going to talk about the kind of man who only feels powerful when facing someone defenseless. The kind who needs approval from enablers to justify cruelty. The kind who performs masculinity because he doesn't actually possess it. I glanced at Trenton. He'd gone very still. Jordan Hale, one of our finest athletes, will show you proper defensive responses. Jordan? Jordan vaulted into the ring, moving with the fluid confidence of someone who'd spent years perfecting his craft. He was 6'2", lean muscle, and had a presence that commanded attention without demanding it. The crowd applauded as he took center stage. Let's start with something simple, I said into the microphone. Hair pulling. It's one of the most common attacks against women because it's easy, it's painful, and it makes the attacker feel powerful. I nodded to one of our female trainers, Simone, who stepped up as a volunteer. She was 40, maybe 5'5", looked like someone's mom. Perfect. Jordan demonstrated 3 different escapes, each one smooth and effective. First, the turn and trap, rotating into the grab, trapping the attacker's wrist, controlling the situation. Second, the overhead break, reaching up, grabbing the attacker's fingers, bending them backward. Third, the strike and escape, a sharp elbow to the solar plexus, then pulling free. The crowd applauded after each technique. People took out phones, recording. I made sure the lighting was perfect, the angles clear. Then I spoke again, and I made sure my voice carried to the very back of the room. This technique is particularly useful against a specific type of attacker, the kind of man who only shows aggression toward women, the kind who grabs hair in restaurants when he thinks nobody will stop him, the kind who hides behind his father's approval because he's too weak to justify his own actions. Every eye in the building shifted slightly. Some people looked confused. Others started scanning the crowd, trying to figure out who I was talking about. A few had already guessed. I could see recognition dawning on their faces. Trenton's face drained of color. Arthur leaned over and whispered something harsh in his son's ear. From where I stood, I couldn't hear it, but I could guess. Stay calm. Don't react. Don't give him what he wants. I continued. These men are cowards. They perform masculinity because they don't actually possess it. They need victims who won't fight back to feel strong. And the moment they face real confrontation, the kind that involves risk, consequences, witnesses, they collapse like empty suits. Trenton stood up abruptly, his chair scraped backward, nearly tipping. I don't have to listen to this. The room went silent. 200 faces turned toward him. I smiled. Running away already? That's interesting. We haven't even gotten to the best part. Arthur grabbed Trenton's arm, pushing him back into his seat. The move was forceful enough that people nearby flinched. Trenton sat heavily, but his whole body vibrated with barely contained panic. I let the moment breathe. Let everyone see it. Let it be recorded by the dozen phones now pointed in his direction. The news camera swiveled, capturing his face. As I was saying, I continued smoothly, real strength doesn't need an audience. Real strength protects. It doesn't prey. And real strength certainly doesn't require applause from enablers who should know better. Arthur's face turned purple, but he didn't move. He couldn't, not without confirming everything I was implying. Let's do another demonstration, I said. This time, let's show what happens when a bully encounters someone who won't back down. Jordan, stay ready. Officer Laramie, would you step closer to the ring, please? Laramie moved into position, his uniform and badge visible to everyone. His presence sent a clear message. What happened here tonight would be witnessed by law enforcement. Legal, official, protected. Now, I said, projecting my voice across the space, I'd like to invite someone from the audience to participate. A volunteer who represents the kind of man we've been discussing. Someone who understands what it's like to feel powerful only when facing someone defenseless. I pointed directly at Trenton. You. Yes, you in the back. Why don't you come up here and show everyone what real courage looks like? The crowd erupted in murmurs. Phones lifted higher, recording. The news camera zoomed in. Trenton shook his head sharply. No, absolutely not. No? That's unfortunate. I was hoping you'd want to demonstrate your strength in front of all these witnesses. Unless, of course, you only feel brave when it's just you and a woman who weighs 120 pounds. This is insane, Arthur hissed, standing. We're leaving. This is harassment. This is— Sit down, Arthur. My voice carried steel now. Your son accepted an invitation to a public event. The public would like to see what he's made of. Arthur hesitated. I could see the calculation in his eyes. Leave now and confirm guilt, or stay and try to salvage the situation. His pride won. It always did with men like him. He sat. Trenton remained frozen in his chair, hands gripping the armrests so hard his knuckles had gone white. Not coming up? I said into the microphone. That's all right. Let me come to you. I climbed out of the ring and walked down the center aisle. The crowd parted instinctively. My footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. Every phone tracked my movement. Trenton's eyes went wide. He tried to stand, but his legs wouldn't cooperate. I stopped 5 feet away from him, close enough to be imposing, far enough to be legal. Stand up. I don't want any trouble, he said, voice cracking. Then you shouldn't have started any. Stand up. Arthur pushed him from behind. Get up. Face him like a man. Show everyone you're not afraid. Trenton stood shakily. He was maybe 6 feet tall, but he seemed smaller now. His expensive suit looked like a costume, something he wore to play a role he couldn't actually fill. Here's what we're going to do, I said quietly, but the room was so silent that everyone heard. The microphone hidden in my jacket picked up every word. You're going to walk to that ring. You're going to climb inside, and you're going to stand there while I explain to everyone exactly what kind of person you are. I'm not doing that. Yes, you are, because if you don't, I will stand here and describe in detail what you did to my daughter last weekend. I will tell every person in this room how you grabbed her hair and made her cry. I will explain how your father applauded you for it, and then I'll ask everyone to share it online, with your name attached, with your company attached, with everything attached. His breathing accelerated. Sweat appeared on his forehead, catching the overhead lights. You can't do this, he whispered. I'm doing it right now. Walk. Trenton walked. Every step looked like it cost him. Arthur followed, face rigid with fury and humiliation, trying to maintain some dignity, but failing. When they reached the ring, I climbed in first, then gestured for Trenton to follow. He struggled getting through the ropes, nearly fell, caught himself on the middle rope. His coordination had abandoned him completely. The crowd had gone from murmuring to completely silent. This wasn't entertainment anymore. This was a public reckoning, and everyone knew they were witnessing something significant. I took the microphone back from Jordan. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Trenton Marlowe. Trenton works in corporate management at Castellan Consulting. Trenton is married to my daughter, Callie. And Trenton has a very specific problem. I turned to face him directly. He couldn't look at me. His eyes stayed fixed on his shoes. Expensive, polished, probably cost more than most people here made in a week. Trenton's problem is that he mistakes cruelty for strength. He confuses control with confidence. He believes that hurting someone weaker than him makes him powerful. Last Saturday, in a Manhattan restaurant called Lumiere, this man grabbed my daughter by the hair and yanked her head down. hard enough to make her cry. And his father, I pointed at Arthur, applauded. The crowd reacted viscerally. Gasps, angry mutters, shocked expressions. Someone near the front said, "What the hell?" Trenton's hands shook. You're twisting it. It wasn't like that." "Then how was it, Trenton? Explain to these 200 people how pulling your wife's hair in public was actually justified." "Go ahead. I'm listening. We're all listening." He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. "No explanation? Then let me continue. See, what Trenton doesn't realize is that his behavior follows a pattern. Classic pattern, really. Predictable. He only targets women, never men. Never anyone who might fight back. He performs toughness for his father because he's desperate for approval. But inside, he's terrified." "Shut up," Trenton said, but the words had no force. "He's terrified because deep down, he knows he's a fraud. He knows that if he ever faced real confrontation, the kind that involves risk, real consequences, actual danger, he'd fold immediately." "I'm not afraid of you," Trenton said, but his voice shook, betraying the lie. "Prove it." I took one step toward him. Trenton stumbled backward, arms coming up defensively, like I'd swung at him. I hadn't raised my hands, hadn't made a threatening gesture, just walked closer, and he broke. "Don't touch me!" he shouted, voice cracking high. The crowd shifted. Someone laughed nervously. Others looked disturbed, uncomfortable with how easily he'd crumbled. I took another step. Trenton backpedaled until he hit the ropes. "Stay away from me!" "Trenton," I said calmly, "I haven't touched you. I'm just standing here. Why are you so afraid?" He tried to climb through the ropes, got tangled, nearly fell. His coordination had completely abandoned him. Jordan moved casually closer, not threatening, just present, just there. Trenton saw him and absolutely panicked. "Don't let them hurt me!" He looked at Officer Laramie desperately. "He's threatening me! Arrest him! Do something!" Laramie shook his head slowly. "I haven't seen anyone threaten you, sir. I've just seen you back away from people standing still." "This is insane!" Arthur shouted from below. "You're all witnessing harassment, intimidation. I'll sue. I turned to address the crowd again. "This is what cowardice looks like. This is what happens when a man who only fights women faces the possibility of real consequence. Watch." I nodded at Jordan. He understood instantly. Jordan took one slow step toward Trenton. Just one. Measured. Calm. No aggression in his posture. No threat in his expression. Just movement. Trenton made a sound. High, desperate, nothing like the confident voice he used on Callie. He tried to climb through the ropes again, but his legs wouldn't cooperate. His expensive shoes slipped on the canvas. He fell. Not from being pushed, not from being struck, not from any physical contact whatsoever. He fell from his own terror. He landed hard on his back, breath leaving him in a rush. And then, in front of 200 people, in front of cameras recording every second, Trenton Marlowe curled into a ball and started crying. "Please," he sobbed. "Please don't hurt me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." Jordan hadn't moved closer. I hadn't moved at all. We just stood there, watching him destroy himself with his own fear. The crowd erupted. Some people laughed, harsh, contemptuous laughter. Others looked satisfied. The news camera captured everything. Arthur tried to climb into the ring, but Officer Laramie blocked him. "Sir, your son volunteered to participate. Let him finish." "He's being attacked," Arthur sputtered. "By what? Standing? Sir, nobody has touched him." I crouched down next to Trenton, making sure the microphone caught every word. "This is what happens when bullies get exposed, Trenton. This is what you really are. Not the tough guy who controls women. Not the man your father wants you to be. Just scared. Just weak. Just someone who only feels strong when hurting people who can't defend themselves." He couldn't respond. Just kept crying, arms wrapped around his head. I stood back up and addressed the room one final time. "Let this be a lesson. To anyone who thinks they can mistreat their partner, because nobody will stop them. I gestured to Trenton's curled form. This is the truth underneath. This is what they're trying to hide. And once everyone sees it, they can't unsee it. Officer Laramie stepped closer. For everyone recording, let me be clear. I witnessed no assault here tonight. I saw a man panic when confronted with his own behavior. Arthur stared at his son with an expression of pure disgust. I leaned down one more time. If you ever touch my daughter again, what happened tonight will seem gentle. Do you understand? Trenton nodded frantically, still crying. Good. Now get out of my gym. Trenton crawled to the ropes. Jordan helped him through. Arthur caught his son as he stumbled down. They walked toward the exit. The crowd parted. People spoke openly now. That's the guy? He only hits women. Pathetic. Did you see him crying? When they reached the door, Arthur looked back once. His face held recognition, understanding, the knowledge that he'd created this. They disappeared into the February night. I stepped into the center of the ring, raised the microphone one final time, and let my voice carry across the packed gym. You don't need fists to destroy a bully. All you need is for the world to see who he truly is. Trenton's sobbing echoed from somewhere outside. Arthur's voice rose in anger. Car doors slammed. The entire room erupted in applause that shook the walls. I stood there, spotlight blazing down, 200 witnesses on their feet, cameras still recording, and I felt something settle deep in my chest. Not satisfaction exactly, but completion. The father had won.